At the airport, a glass panel fell into countless pieces, landing directly on a young boy. The boy immediately passed out. His parents frantically called for help, and people dialed 911. At that moment, a doctor happened to be passing by and helped them check the boy's pulse. The boy's neck was cut, and blood was spraying everywhere. The doctor pressed a clean cloth to his neck to stop the bleeding. Surprisingly, a young man next to them said, "You're killing the boy." The doctor, not pleased, replied, "I'm saving him. The boy is about to die from blood loss." But the young man insisted, "No, you pressed in the wrong spot. If it were an adult, it wouldn't be a problem. But this is a child. You pressed on his trachea." After saying this, the young man moved the doctor's hand upward, and the boy immediately began to breathe. Then, the young man started to check the boy's body. Finding a shard of glass on his stomach, the young man said, "The boy will be fine." The doctor, confused, wondered how the young man could be so confident and asked, "Who are you?" The young man replied, "My name is Sun. I am also a doctor." Sun looked at the boy's arm, noticing a vein, then glanced at his chest, where the results of the internal organs were clearly visible in his mind. Having reached this level of expertise, Sun truly had a deep understanding of medicine. He concluded that the problem was inside the chest, compressing the lung. However, the doctor immediately disagreed, saying the boy's chest was still moving. "The boy is still breathing," he insisted. Sun explained, "The boy's chest movement is abnormal. He probably has a lung injury on the left side. This is a symptom of pneumothorax, and immediate medical intervention is needed." Sun then asked, "Do you have a small sharp knife? About 10 centimeters long?" However, no one at the airport was carrying a knife. Sun told the doctor to prepare for artificial respiration for the boy because his breathing was about to fail. Sun ran to the security checkpoint to borrow a knife, but because of his autism and communication difficulties, he wasn't able to express his needs clearly. The security guards thought he was causing trouble, as they had never encountered anyone asking to borrow a knife before. The guard refused. Sun, knowing time was running out, grabbed the knife and ran, but after running about 20 meters, he was pushed to the ground. Fortunately, the boy's mother arrived just in time and explained, "In 5 minutes, the boy will no longer be able to breathe." At that moment, the doctor was still administering artificial respiration, and Sun had gathered the necessary items: a knife, tubing, tape, and 2 bottles of liquor. Sun planned to perform surgery on the boy's chest. The following is a series of steps that amazed the specialists. Sun took the knife and tubing, placed them on the boy's body, and poured liquor over them. The alcohol, which was about 43 degrees, sterilized both the tools and the area for the surgery. He then used the knife to cut the tubing into 2 pieces, stuffing them into the bottles and sealing them with tape. In his mind, Sun had already determined the purpose of the surgery, to remove all the air around the boy's lungs so that his lungs could function properly again. Sun began to operate on the boy, but his parents couldn't bear to look. The doctor looked at Sun with a confused expression. The surgery went smoothly. Sun inserted a tube into the boy's body and held up a bottle, inside which bubbles began to form. The doctor couldn't hold back and asked what the bottle was for. Sun explained that the tube could expel air from the body, while the bottle also prevented air from entering. This simple valve was surprisingly effective. The boy's breathing started to normalize, and everyone around clapped and cheered. This was Sun's first time saving someone, marking the beginning of his legendary journey in healing and saving lives. Finally, the boy was transferred to the ambulance, but Sun discovered that the boy's heartbeat was unstable. The nurse mocked him, saying that Sun didn't know how to read the data on the ventilator. After arriving at the hospital, Sun insisted to the nurse that an ECG and ultrasound were necessary for the boy. When Dassel said that with the current data, there was no issue with the boy's heart. Sun was about to argue, but was kicked out by security. The boy was taken into the operating room. When the doctor saw the one-way valve Sun had used, he was also surprised and asked if they needed to check the boy's heart. Dassel said that, with the current condition, it wasn't necessary. Sun waited anxiously outside the door, but the entrance was blocked by security guards. Both sides of the door were guarded, and even the revolving door had security. Sun tried everything, but he couldn't get in. During the surgery, Dassel noticed the boy's heartbeat starting to change, which was the most frightening thing that could happen during an operation. He asked Claire why she had earlier suggested they check the boy's heart. Claire explained that the young man outside had insisted on it and claimed to be the one who had used the one-way valve. "If you don't understand, how could Sun possibly predict this? Could it be that he's even more capable than me?" So Cho asked the subordinate to perform an ultrasound on the patient's heart, and then Nu stepped out and asked Sun why he was checking the heart. Sun's intention was that the patient's heartbeat was unstable due to fluid accumulation in the heart. The operating room called to inform Nu that the ultrasound results were in. Everything seemed normal, and there was no fluid buildup. Nu, dissatisfied, remarked that Sun had guessed wrong, and he had wasted his time. After that, Nu returned to the operating room, while Claire felt that this young man was not simple at all and invited him into the operating room. Sun looked at the ultrasound image, examining it repeatedly. Others glanced at it and said it was normal, but Sun insisted that it was not normal. The right side of the heart was bulging and deformed, which was very difficult to detect. However, other doctors did not notice it. The treatment plan for the heart, as Sun suggested, was now being followed. Claire then explained that the issue might be due to a shard of glass traveling through the bloodstream into the heart artery. She kept explaining this matter. And finally, Nu agreed to proceed with the surgery as Sun had suggested. 30 minutes later, when Nu opened the patient's chest, they indeed found a shard of glass in the heart. Realizing that this shard posed a life-threatening danger, Sun's judgment had saved the boy once again. He had noticed the abnormality in the heart from the ultrasound image, truly remarkable. But in reality, today was the day Sun was interviewing at this hospital. While Sun was saving lives, the hospital leadership was having an ongoing debate. The entire leadership, upon seeing Sun's CV, doubted him because he was autistic. How could someone with autism possibly become a doctor? If something went wrong, the responsibility would be huge. The hospital director, however, was fond of Sun because he had watched him grow up. Around this time, a video gradually went viral on the internet showing the moment Sun saved someone at the airport. It was shared across social media platforms, and Sun was called a genius doctor by netizens. This changed the leadership's opinion of him. They asked him to introduce himself, but Sun stood there silently. Finally, Sun gathered his courage and began telling his story. It turned out that since he was a child, due to his autism, Sun had been bullied by his peers and abused by his father at home. The only one who stood up to protect him was his younger brother. One day, when the rabbit Sun had been caring for died, he decided he wanted to become a doctor. His younger brother even gave him a toy knife, telling him to remember that he was the smartest and could do anything well. His brother was proud of him. To this day, Sun still keeps that toy knife carefully. However, during a game of hide-and-seek, his younger brother tragically fell and died. Returning to the hospital, Sun expressed his deep sorrow over his brother's death, saying that the boy never had the chance to grow up. He had been meant to grow up, and Sun hoped he could help others realize this goal. Sun's words deeply moved everyone, and the interview went smoothly. Sun became a doctor at the Bonaventure Hospital, and he looked great in a blue coat, officially becoming a healer. Sun was about to begin his career as a doctor. Although Sun had autism, it was as if fate had closed one door only to open another for him. Sun had genius syndrome, which meant that in fields like art or academics, he had abilities far beyond ordinary people. Sun was a genius in the field of medicine and had an exceptional ability to remember everything he saw. Truly impressive. In the first episode, this serious doctor sat upright for a long while. What was he doing? Surprisingly, he was waiting for a patient to pass gas. The patient, a beautiful young woman, felt very embarrassed and told the doctor that she was done. The doctor leaned over and sniffed but detected no odor. She hadn't passed gas yet, so he said he would wait a bit longer. It turned out that the woman had just undergone surgery and the doctor needed to confirm whether her intestines had become obstructed after the surgery, which could only be determined by whether she was able to pass gas. This doctor, named Sun, who had autism, was starting his first day at work. The patient, Miss CO, a 55-year-old woman, had just undergone prostatectomy. When asked if she could drive after the surgery, Sun hurriedly responded that she could. Of course. However, he added that she might face a high risk of erectile dysfunction later. This made everyone in the room feel very awkward.